Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. I appreciate you stopping by. Tobin and Leroy, weekdays 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We get into the silliness every single day. I'm going to try and bother Leroy. It's my favorite time, July sports talk, which I can really just go in some wacky directions, I always say July sports talk, it's a wild card, dude. But today, a couple of things to get into for the Miami Heat. Some comments from Erik Spoelstra, some comments from some Miami Heat legends that were very interesting in regards to the Heat's offseason moves, and particularly them not thinking that the Miami Heat are done yet. So we'll get to that here in just a second. But, just as I was about to record, the Miami Heat had posted some stuff of Andrew Wiggins working out at the facility. Some photos of Andrew Wiggins getting some work in, some Instagram videos of him getting some work in. So Andrew Wiggins at the facility, making himself at home, starting to get comfortable. And Erik Spoelstra made that assessment of him as the Heat were in Vegas and he was touching on the topics. He talked about Andrew Wiggins, kind of unsolicited, was talking about leadership around the team, and mentioned that he thinks Andrew Wiggins is going to be a lot more comfortable this year.
Wiggs, I think as he gets comfortable. With Wiggs, so much of this with him is about being comfortable. He finally got comfortable in a month. It didn't take long. He got comfortable, and he was, he was dynamic, with there. But I think we'll have leadership that will establish throughout the roster starting in training camp.
Certainly with Andrew Wiggins, we had that monster game against Charlotte where he wasn't Jimmy Butler much with that 22 on, but he did have a 40-point game with the Miami Heat in the regular season, something Jimmy Butler never did, oddly enough. Did it plenty of times in the postseason, but that was one of the funny dynamics of Jimmy Butler's regular season versus playoff Jimmy. So Andrew Wiggins being in a comfortable spot, and yes, there were some trade talks this offseason. The Herald reporting that he was in the Kevin Durant offer, but obviously the Heat didn't press on it too hard because they didn't keep throwing assets into it. We've been having some conversations about a LeBron reunion. And the Lakers being even before the LeBron stuff has been getting kicked around. The Lakers were reportedly poking around Andrew Wiggins, but the Heat only wanted to move Andrew Wiggins for a haul, which lets you know, hey, they're not in a spot where they felt like they're going to just move him to move him. I think the Heat were going to do it for a seismic upgrade, or if they could fleece somebody. If the Heat could get a first-round pick for Andrew Wiggins, I think they would certainly do it. If it's just, your worst young guy and salary filler for Andrew Wiggins, I don't think the Heat are in a place to do that, because I do think the Heat aren't going to go full youth, thus with the Norman Powell move. They are going to kind of sprinkle it in and hopefully put their young guys in a better position to flourish this season. And I think that they do believe Andrew Wiggins is going to be part of that, right? So that's good. But, and by the way, as far as the LeBron thing is concerned, the latest, I guess, today was from The Athletic. They said that no buyout request, no trade request, that the Lakers do expect him to be at training camp. But they did also report that the Mavericks, there was a lot of people saying, oh, he's going to go with Kyrie and he's going to go with Anthony Davis. But apparently the Dallas Mavericks not in a position where they want to gut their team. They would have to trade, I think, 4 different guys, probably both of their centers, to make this happen. And so I just want everybody to be clear, why I mentioned the LeBron thing with the Heat. I'm not naive to think that, the Heat are the most attractive organization to LeBron James. I'm just doing process of elimination of, who has those salaries to match that don't go along for the Lakers, and LeBron could talk into it being a marketable thing. The East, a roster and pieces that do make sense for him, and a doable trade. Maybe the Heat swing Jaquez to them. And I know how it feels like I'm going, the same thing there with the worst young guy or the lowest valued young guy. But honestly, what do the Lakers think they're going to get in a LeBron trade? There's 2 teams that can trade for him, and he has a no trade clause, which basically puts you at no value. I ultimately think this ends with him going to, with him staying with the Lakers, just kind of disgruntled, because he's done that before. He's done that with Miami. He's done that with Cleveland, especially. So I ultimately think that's nothing he's not used to in 22 years of basketball. But the thing I really wanted to touch on today was a couple of legends, Miami Heat legends, have weighed in on the offseason. And it's not only that they've weighed in the offseason, they've weighed in, but they still expect more, which I find interesting because of the guys who are saying it. And look, everybody's on podcasts these days, but I do think that this podcast in particular has really close Heat ties because it is hosted by Udonis Haslem, who works for the Heat, and one of his best friends in Mike Miller, who also, by the way, happens to be now becoming an NBA super agent. So Mike Miller, Heat legend, 7 threes, Game 5 of the 2012-2013 finals, 1 shoot 3. That guy, certified for life. Okay, everybody loves Mike Miller. One of the things that apparently, turned LeBron off. We're talking about LeBron being petty about money, maybe like he was with the Lakers, and the Lakers maybe not letting him in on the $10 billion sale, letting Luka in. One of the things, what was it back in the day that supposedly got LeBron started to get upset? Not the cookies, that they amnestied Mike Miller, and that the Heat were just trying to save dough all over the place. So Mike Miller said today, he and OG, I was actually listening to this on the way home, and they were talking about their favorite East teams. And Mike Miller, who is Paolo Banchero's agent, he was picking the Magic to win the East. And then, of course, UD was sticking up for the Heat, which that's why we love OG. That's why we love UD. He's going to ride for the Heat no matter what. And Mike Miller said on the Norman Powell move, he said, we don't hear enough about Norman Powell. Norman Powell has never been a sexy name. He's an awesome basketball player. I still don't believe, even with that move, the Miami Heat can hate me, I don't believe it moves the needle for a championship. But you know what I do know? Coach Riley's not done. Really? Okay. Hey. Not uninteresting. It's not uninteresting to just kind of have that kicked around, because you don't think when these two are lounging back saying spitball on the day, and like they got to be a little coy about, you can't be giving and laying all your cards on the table. Mike Miller does represent John Morant. But I found that like, I was like, okay, but I understand you're on a podcast, you're spitballing a little bit. But I was like, that one certainly stood out. And look, for his take of Norman Powell not being a needle mover for a championship, for Heat fans who are upset about it, let's put the Norman Powell thing in perspective. It was an awesome trade for the Miami Heat, and be happy with that. What it does as far as needle moving, first of all, Norman Powell, as confident as they come, we'll see what this means, because he thinks that he is one of those dudes, and this is going to be his moment. Is he a little old to be one of those 1-2 guy options that can make a big difference? I don't know. I mean, the Clippers today basically cut bait with him and said, hey, we're going to shop at Five Below and get a bought-out Bradley Beal, and we think samesies. But Norman Powell has been more productive than Bradley Beal, even though Bradley Beal's got the better all-time resume. So we'll see how that gamble goes for him. And certainly Dwayne Wade has been given a lot of flowers to him. He was also on his podcast. Now, he didn't really give assessment on whether this is a move to make the Heat contenders, but he did say, like, hey, this is finally a move I can get behind, basically, were his words. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is a good move. But Mike Miller's saying, like, this, it feels like there's got to be something more. But he wasn't the only guy to do that. Another guy who is probably one of the more iconic trades in Miami Heat history, Shaquille Mother bleeping O'Neal, Shaq, came out today. This was an interview with Forbes magazine over the weekend. The interview was done by DJ Siddiqui. And it was Shaquille O'Neal and what the Miami Heat needs to be a contender. Quote, they need a big-time closer. But he also teased something in this interview, which was interesting. So Shaq said in this one-on-one interview, said the Heat have always been an organization where they do great things and take pride in being in shape and playing defense. Norman Powell definitely gives them a lift, but I still need them to have that major impact. I think they need a big star. Which, look, we all agree with that. I mean, nobody is sitting here disagreeing with that the Miami Heat need that dude. We are all kind of aware of that. He says they got all the pieces. They just need they need a closer, big-time closer. I don't know what it is, but they're always going to compete, and they're always going to make a run for players. Says they write, the four-time NBA champion reiterates it's all about winning and championships in Miami under team president Pat Riley. He said, quote, so Shaq, when you talk about Miami Heat culture, the culture that I helped create, it's all about championships. Do they have enough to win a championship? No, not at all. But if you can get them a closer, then we'll start talking championships. Which, again, I don't think anybody disagrees with. It's kind of in the same sentiment of Mike Miller. And I do think that everybody looks at the Norman Powell trade and is like, hey, that's a really good trade. You traded two pieces that were not going to really produce for you into a very productive player who you don't have long-term money turn into. Anybody who's complaining about that trade is weird. I don't understand what you could be upset about. But Norman Powell has never been, even with his resume, a guy that is looked upon that's going to carry the load. Now, does his presence on the team put Tyler Hero in a position to do that? I guess we'll see. Does it do it for Bam? I will see. I mean, but both of those, the Heat's best chance, if there's a chance for those guys, it's got to be one of those two guys. And obviously this is a big year. But I found this part about Shaquille O'Neal, the interesting things, the most interesting thing. He closes talking about Pat Riley and then kind of leaves a little acorn to Forbes. Says, Forbes writes, Riley, one of the biggest basketball legends of all time, has won 3 championships with the Heat, 4 championships prior to it as head coach of the Lakers, and 1 as a player. Quote from Shaquille O'Neal, quote, that's all he cares about. He don't care about winning. He cares about winning championships. If he doesn't win championships, heads will roll. When asked about who are those possible closers that the Heat could target, O'Neal wouldn't get specific, simply saying that Riley has, quote, a lot of names in mind. A lot of names, says O'Neal. I don't want to get people in trouble, but he has a lot of names, end quote. And I was like, oh? Really? Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Shaquille O'Neal's out here like a rascal. A little tease. Well, the big teaser. Going out there and saying that Pat Riley maybe has something up his sleeve. Maybe has something up his mind. Now, look. Does Shaq tell whoppers from time to time? Sure, he's Shaq. I'll acknowledge. He can do that. He can play coy in interviews sometimes. I've interviewed Shaq before. It's a fun song and dance. It's a fun game because he'll kind of he'll tease you. He'll kind of like, you know, play, and then he'll like bring it back and he'll, you know, answer the way you want it, you know? So it can be a fun game. So I don't know what the tones are. Obviously, it's an article. You guys can go read it in Forbes. But when he says that he's like, a lot of names, I don't want to get people in trouble, but he has a lot of names. And it does make you wonder with the Heat, do they have another move here, right? And especially with the Wiggins thing, right? Like if we do take this, and I don't know when Shaq talked to Riley. I don't know when Mike Miller and UD's always in the loop, but I don't know the last time Mike Miller was in the loop. But it makes you wonder with the Wiggins thing, with the Powell thing. Okay, is there a chance the Heat are trading one of their cornerstones for somebody that's the dude? You know, they come out very strongly because they need Khalil Ware to be ready. What does that mean? Does that mean, that Bammer Tyler's is going to be on the block for that closer? If they're not trading Andrew Wiggins and they've made it known to Andrew Wiggins, hey, you're going to be sticking around here, obviously barring something unforeseen. Is that LeBron? Is that Giannis? Is that John Morant? I don't know. But I found it interesting that on the same day, coincidentally, that Mike Miller's podcast is released, or a day beforehand, and I don't think that Miller did his podcast yesterday. I don't think. The day beforehand, Shaquille O'Neal has an article that's released, and they're both talking about great, good move on the Norman Powell. It's not enough. But Pat Riley's still up to something. I'm just supposed to ignore that? That's just nothing? Now, I get it. I know Heat fans are going to be like, come on, dude. Don't, like, you're not really going to fall for the okie-doke, are you? I get you guys. There hasn't been the seismic move. The Norman Powell move was a great move. I'm glad they did something this summer, okay? However, these guys, if they didn't think it would have been very easily saying, like, hey, he's got to do something. It would have been very easy to just say, hey, he's got to do something, right? Like it would have been very easy for these two guys to do the political thing and be like, hey, yeah, but Pat Riley would still be working on something, or, could be cooking something. These guys are both using it in the sense that he has those ideas, he has those names, he does have something in mind, and Miller's saying that Coach Riley's not done. Not that he shouldn't be done. I don't know. Could just be fodder. But words mean words, in the words of Leroy Horde. And I don't know. I just found that interesting.